one thing we learned at TCI Expo is about branch aspect ratio. And you want a 2-to-1 like this, and not a 1-to-1 like this one down here. And that's more important than the actual branch angle.
So to mitigate this, is branches with large aspect ratios like this one, we want to focus our reduction cuts on the tips of these branches. And if we're coming back year to year, if this is a client that we usually visit, we want to take that back farther and farther each year to make sure that we eventually will remove this branch and let this branch, your top, take over. That's what we learned at the CCIA Expo.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Cumberland Valley. So Sean and Dane just spoke to you about branch aspect ratios and something they learned at the TCI Expo. And just so happens, I was asked to take care of this tree again after 2 years of doing that same thing to a lead in this tree. Had a big codominant stem, and I reduced it pretty hard. Just that one stem, I reduced that stem pretty hard, and told them exactly what Sean said, that in a couple years we'll come back and maybe take it down a little more or take it off completely. So to get started with that process, I'm gonna hop up, do a little bit of just maintenance thinning and take off a few other limbs that I want to get rid of, and then we'll jump up in there and look at the exact cut I made and hopefully take it down a little further and try to eliminate that lead altogether. So, all right, stand by. Okay, did a little bit more structural thinning, subordinated the top that we are preserving a little bit, and now let's jump up in there and look at the big codom that we reduced 2 years ago, see what it looks like, and then talk about what cuts we're going to make now. So here we have our main stem that we're preserving, and then we selected a dominant leader up there, and we're going to try to preserve that throughout the pruning cycle of this tree. 2 years ago we took this one, which isn't quite a 1-to-1 ratio, but almost. Certainly we don't want this thing getting larger. We also can see down there there's a little bit of ingrown bark, so bark inclusion, which isn't good, which is why we're trying to slowly reduce this lead and either transform it into a lateral limb as the tree grows, or remove it altogether. Kind of see how the tree reacts and what we have. But here's our big cut we made 2 years ago. As you can see, normal little bit of decay there and drying. We do have a firm piece of wound wood around there, so nothing is drying out and decaying too awful bad. We're letting coat it do its thing. Got some suckers coming up out of here, probably because of the opening in the canopy, and they are not always a bad thing. I know a lot of guys, and I did the same thing when I was younger. As soon as I get up into a tree, I start cutting these things off if they're in my way, especially. If you are structure pruning a tree, if this tree is young and vigorous, and you're making bigger cuts, planned big cuts like this one, not always a good thing to take these suckers out, because the suckers that are growing close to this wound are in fact helping nutrients flow through that area, and they are making that healing process easier on the tree, and it's helping that out. So if this was our final cut and there was some more suckers around here, I would leave those. It's going to help that wound heal a little bit faster than if I was just to cut those off. So at this point, one of the first things I saw down here on one of the limbs attached to the lead that we're saving, I'm going to be making a bigger thinning cut down there to get rid of one of these guys. I'm not sure yet which one. And then up here, I think at this point, I'm going to reduce it a little bit further this time, take this piece off, maybe make another cut here, and we're going to further shorten or reduce the size of this lead. So let's do that. Hopefully I can do that without shaking you all around too much. And let's all right, so we reduced it again. Now I'm anticipating either next year or the following year coming back. This will be full of sprouts again. Take this back even further, possibly cut it down near where my feet are and get rid of this chunk completely. But taking this back incrementally not only reduces the stress on the tree, but it gives the rest of the canopy time to fill this hole, and it doesn't look so abrupt for the client if they don't like the appearance of a big hole in the side of the canopy. This is an ideal situation because this tree's in a backyard and this cut is on the back side of the tree. So if this was a one-time run-of-the-mill client, I may have just done this without even mentioning it, because it's the best thing for the tree. And yeah, it needed done. It was going to be very not that obvious from where the client is normally going to be looking at this thing, but it's because of the nature of who this tree belongs to. We talked through it, and he was all right with it. It's really all I got. So hopefully you understand a little bit more about branch aspect ratios and the importance of taking them down or reducing them incrementally over the course of 2 to 3 or even more pruning cycles, depending on the size of the tree. And I really like that Sean and Dane used a small, maybe a year or two old seedling for that, because that is where proper pruning and proper structure can start if if the client is aware and concerned enough to start young. Any of us that plant trees, we know to start trees, start proper structure when they're super young, because they're growing much faster than they do when they're mature. You can heal wounds quickly, and it's just good practice. So hopefully this answered a question or two and informed everybody as to what Sean and Dane were talking about, and one of the other things we learned at Expo this year. All right, take care. Talk to you later.